Earlier this week, I needed to fill up my car with gas. I've been on the go quite a bit, and the gauge had just been getting lower and lower, but I hadn't found a good opportunity to top up. And honestly, it doesn't help that the gas prices here in Ardsley are exorbitantly high. So as I typically do, I headed over to Central Avenue in Hartsdale, towards one of those BP stations where the prices are a little bit more reasonable. And I just made the left turn off of Ashford onto Central Ave when something happened, something we've all heard about, but we hope never to see happen in real life. There was a father and his young son and a ball. And in a moment of inattention, the ball slipped from the boy's hand and bounced into the road, and he, on instinct, chased after it. And thankfully, he only made it about a foot onto the asphalt before checking himself. He looked up, realizing as if waking up from a dream where he was, and he hopped back onto the sidewalk. He was okay. But even more thankfully, the driver in front of me, who was the immediate responder to the situation, was alert and immediately picked up on what was going on and slammed on their brakes. He or she was driving the speed limit, faithfully observing the road conditions, and presumably was not on the phone. And I too, being aware, had enough time to easily slow down and avoid rear-ending them. So there we were, stopped on Central Ave, the boy safe and the father cautiously edging out on the road to apprehend the fugitive sphere, and that's when the honking began. Cars behind us, unaware of what was going on, unable to see what's happening. But, they had places to be. Some drivers immediately started trying to shift lanes so they could get around, but that's where the ball was, and the father carefully trying to grab it and get it out of the road. And thankfully, the lead driver in that lane also picked up on what was going on and stopped. And that's when the honking picked up and got even louder. It was only a few minutes. It only took a few minutes. But man, those people were mad. I, on the other hand, was just extremely grateful that the boy walked away unharmed. Traffic remains a very interesting concept to me. I think about it inordinately a lot. Large numbers of individuals in their own individual cars, all somehow coordinating their vehicular mobilization in what sometimes seems like a grand synchronized swimming event where everybody weighs 2 tons. Yet not everybody knows the rules. And there are also some people who do know the rules and just don't follow them. Now, I recently heard on the radio that there's been a new study out, and here is an excerpt from the reporting. I think this is very interesting. When unexplained traffic jams happen, says an MIT laboratory, you can probably blame tailgaters. The researchers say that if drivers kept an even distance between cars rather than driving too close to the vehicle in front, traffic flow would remain even. This, quote, bilateral control could double the speed of the average vehicle on busy highways. We humans tend to view the world in terms of what's ahead of us, both literally and conceptually, so it might seem counterintuitive to look backwards, says MIT professor Bertolt Horn, co-author of the article. But driving like this can have a dramatic effect in reducing travel time and fuel consumption without having to build more roads or make other changes to infrastructure. Yet this ideal is very different from what is the norm in most thinking about traffic, especially by those stuck in it. Drivers tend to be looking ever forward, responding only to what's ahead and largely ignoring what's behind. Thus, in stop and go or slow and go situations, each vehicle reacts to the vehicle in front, causing intermittent slowdowns or stops in wave-like patterns. Yet when vehicles are working to maintain equal distances both from the car in front and the vehicle behind, the paper contends, these wave patterns are minimized and traffic flows more smoothly. It's a long quote, but I give it to you because, man, that preaches. It's an MIT lab study and reporting on it, and boy, that preaches. We humans tend to only view the world in terms of what is ahead of us, which also, I would contend, is usually tied to our own individual desire to get ahead. But if all of us were a little bit more attuned to what's going on around us, if all of us were willing to sacrifice just a little bit of our own getting ahead more quickly, and just maintain a comfortable ring of gentleness and kindness around ourselves, then maybe not just with traffic, but with our life together, we could double the speed of the average person on the highway of life. We all just might get where we're going a little bit faster, a little bit more gently, if we take care of one another. Or from another angle, if we would all just follow the dang traffic laws, regulations, and expectations, maybe a few more young boys would make it safely back up onto the sidewalk. Now, these two stories have been on my mind this week, the bald boy and the MIT study, because they exemplify to me something core and critical to our Ephesians passage. Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his power. Put on the whole armor of God so that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For our struggle is not against blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Now, it's always tempting to take this armor of God thing personally and materially. I'm sure we all wish on some level that the source of evil in the world was easily identifiable, preferably embodied, and quite frankly, killable. There are more than enough movies and TV shows dedicated to this wish fulfillment. Netflix recently decided that I should watch a show called Preacher. Don't. But these incredibly violent religious mythologies that people create. And yet, Paul is very clearly saying the opposite here. He's saying the spiritual reality we're faced with is not that. It's not flesh and blood. We are not contending with individuals, but against cosmic powers and systems of, at the time, imperial control, wildly existential. Now, sometimes this whole gospel thing feels like it's just preaching the good news of divine traffic regulation. I and my itinerant colleagues are just road signs doing everything in our power to get your attention and remind you to slow down. There's no turn on red. Keep your eyes on the road. No single drivers in the HOV lane. For the love of God, use your turn signals. And so on and so forth. And part of why we do that is because we're also like the first aid responders who are pulling up to the accidents when they happen and doing what we can to help and helping as we can direct other people to get around when somebody's life has fallen apart. I'd rather you follow the rules than have to pull you out of a car wreck. In this life, God has built the highway, and if we could just follow the directions, we all just might make it to our intended destination. So rather than being a militaristic fantasy, today, for me, putting on the whole armor of God seems to be far more about humbly recognizing our place in the world, acknowledging that we don't have a full understanding of what's going on with the traffic around us, but we're choosing to follow the holy principles anyways. Instead of trying to individually edge ahead or use the misconduct of others as a license to do the same, Paul's letter to the Ephesians invites us to embrace righteousness, peace, faith, alertness, and perseverance. Now, doesn't it sound like good driving conduct? Obey the law, quench your road rage with peace, have faith that we're going to get where we're going in time. Be alert to what's going on around you and persevere in good conduct, even when less aware people behind you are blaring their horns. At the end of the day, we'll all get where we need to be, maybe a bit quicker, but certainly more gently and more kindly. More importantly, most importantly, it just might save a life. Amen.